I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Rodelli, he's on vacation. But Andrew Kuo does not take days off, and he's more ebullient than ever before. Andrew Kuo, why the big smile?
Because, according to Don Jr., we're done with COVID. It's completely over. It makes me psyched to know that we're in the clear, man.
That is good news. I thought you were going to talk about the election, but you're talking about the guy who will be elected to the presidency, I guess, in 4 years from now versus his dad.
Yeah, our future president on Mars will be the spawn of the current president. Pretty cool.
What a tiresome group.
They are very exhausting, for sure.
Just exhausting. That is the best way of phrasing it.
There was
I'm
that.
so tired of their shit.
What was it? The New York Times that had that op-ed that said, "I've wasted the last 4 years of my life thinking about Donald Trump," and I read that and I was like, "Oh, weird. I've wasted the last 4 years of my life thinking about a lot of stupid things, but trying to come up with good tweets."
I wasted the last 4 years worrying about the post-Hinkie Sixers front office. And now that element of my persona is gone. I'm just a good vibes guy online.
You might be a net zero now. Not good, not bad. Just like a Tobias Harris of the Twitter, as they say.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we will see. I say
Well,
Sixers fans are going to be happy moving forward, but maybe not.
I mean,
hope not.
that is the least of our concerns right now. It
What are our
it
concerns?
was our biggest concern as a people. What were the Sixers going to do with the front office? But that has been solved for the time being. The real question is this whole transfer of power election night thing that's going to be happening in a handful of days. So I am fairly taciturn about it when I'm not on the internet. Just walking around the house,
Living your
pretty
life.
okay with it. Yeah. Walking to the store, okay with it. Yeah. Then I start doom scrolling. And all of a sudden, like, they're stealing it. They're stealing the goddamn election, and there's nothing we can do about it. Where's the common ground, Quo? Where should I land on hysteria versus Gen X tranquility?
I'm confident in what I'm about to say, which is I don't know shit about what's going to happen, man. Who knows? Like, I think Biden is ahead in all these polls from what I can tell. I don't know what that means. I'm hoping it's going to be a clean sweep, sort of like when Starks dunked on 3 Bulls. It just was, everything after that was great. So I'm hoping for a little murkiness and then the sun to rise.
I'm hoping for less murkiness and the sun to rise. But
That's true, but there will be murkiness.
yes, murkiness abounds, and it's intentional murkiness. It's a real bog, a swamp even, if you will. But yes, it has become clear that the Republican path to victory is based on courts. It does not seem based on winning votes. It does not seem based on appealing to the American people with ideas or qualifications or promises to do anything. At this point, it all seems like judiciary hijinks. So that is inevitably going to happen. We know this. They have showed their hand already. And that's going to occur when we're seeing it around the country. Okay, we're going to stop voting. Excuse me. We're going to stop counting votes after a certain hour.
Minnesota.
Yeah, and Pennsylvania, they attempted to do the same thing. It's total horseshit. So we'll see how effective it is. I don't know.
Also,
so online, it feels already effective and terrifying. But we don't know if it will be or not.
And I agree. And I think the Democrats knew this was, if things were looking this way a few days out of the election, the Republicans, like any sports team, would throw a Hail Mary, and this is it. And there's a chance a Hail Mary will get caught, and we've seen them been caught, but I don't blame them for trying this because it looks like it's their last kind of chance.
Well, I do blame them for trying this
Sure.
in that it is deeply undemocratic and amoral.
Well, I was thinking first, like, Trump has been saying it lately, but rarely do you hear Republicans say, like, get out and vote. Everyone just go. It's your right. It's just your civic duty. Like, they don't really push that narrative. And the reason is because the electoral favors them, because all these jagged little areas that they've gerrymandered away. But I think the surprising thing is just like a logical thought. It's just, if it takes a long time to tally votes because of a pandemic, you should just extend election day. Just be like,
Well, sure, no shit.
just do it. It's like the votes are what's important, not the deadline.
But of course, but that's how politics have generally always mattered. As you were saying before, Republicans have never shied away from voter disenfranchisement. They've done it all the time.
Yeah.
But in this level of saying, yeah, we're going to stop counting ballots, it's very flagrant in a way that it has never been before. It's intentionally sowing, confusion and trying to invalidate the results of a presidential election. I mean, it's really unprecedented in terms of how obvious and brazen it is. Again, though, I get upset when I'm reading about it, and then I go get a sandwich, and all of a sudden I live in a democracy again. It's crazy.
I mean, I have not. I'm beige as hell, but I have not been stressed out about sports in like 10 years, and for many reasons. The main reason is because the teams I care about are bad, but the biggest actual reason, I think, is because as soon as you start humanizing, or as soon as you start talking about specific things that happen, you kind of like start forgiving people, and like that's just a product of getting older and the Gen X tranquility, to be honest. But the election doesn't feel like that. It feels like, I mean, sports helps a lot here in talking about a clock and overtime, and it's almost as if the Republicans are calling when the clock ends and what rules to abide by that clock. And the Democrats are that team that have to play the other team, the clock, and the refs. And this is just the rules of it, because like you said, the Democrats have like this uneasy agreement with their disposition and their perception. So here we go. It's all playing out. I'm just very optimistic still that Biden's leading in all the numbers.
Yeah, I do take a lot of solace in that. It's mildly disturbing to realize that in a two-party system, one of them are, in fact, like vile, like cheaters. Like that they are, that it's not a few members of the party. Like they are wholesale into stymieing democracy, and they've leaned into it. That's pretty disturbing in a two-party state. That is essentially saying we have half of our two political parties are embracing fascism if in fact it helps them remain in power. Not great. Not necessarily something you can put back in a bottle.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's so many different, and this is what I mean by like when you humanize something. Like when you hear a conservative speak and you don't know that they're a conservative or a Republican, you don't have none of that information, and they talk about like whatever fiscal responsibility, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. You're just a very cautious person, and it's hard for me to just split it down the middle. And I think that's the challenge of like watching the news, like you say, like unplugging from it helps, because things not only kind of float away, but they also like aren't framed for you in a specific way. I don't know. I've been doing a lot of like listening to pods and reading about the Gore v. Bush Florida incident a few elections ago, and that was like a heinous display of procedure.
And thankfully, we now have 3 people who were part of Bush's legal team on the Supreme Court
Yeah, I mean,
for that exact same reason. There is literally no reason they're on the Supreme Court except for their experience in stealing an election. Not a great omen.
yeah, and you know, I would maybe hope that we don't see it as like a villainous thing, because there's certainly some villains out there. There's Cobra
Wait,
Commander.
you don't see what is villainous.
Every conservative judge is not a villain. If they're associated with Bush, it doesn't mean they're a villain.
They were associated with stealing the election. They are literally villains. They were put in place
They're not
in the
literally
current Supreme
villains.
Court to help Donald Trump steal an election again. That's
So-
why they are there. There was no other point in them even being on the Supreme Court.
So the interesting thing about the Gore-Bush thing was it was framed kind of brilliantly by Bush that Gore was the sore loser. And it's because the media had followed Fox News' call that Florida had gone to Bush too early. And so NBC, CBS, ABC all followed in that because of the way election news kind of flows. They don't want to be the last one. And it kind of shifted throughout the night. It's a fascinating story. I don't know if anyone necessarily stole that, because it's still up for debate. There was a mechanical error in the ballot that no one has been able to explain away, right? Like the whole went through to Buchanan, I think, like on the whole hanging Chad thing. It's a fascinating story, and I wish Gore won. Obviously, I voted for Gore, but it is something that is so deeply complicated and unresolved, and kind of opens up more and more you talk about it, especially in 2000, the way the media kind of shaped Bush's victory in Florida because of procedure. It was awesome.
We're certainly going to see some similarities in the approach of Fox News this time.
But we know now, right? Yeah,
We know, right. They're going to try to do that, I would presume, because in the way that the votes are going to be tabulated, it seems likely that we'll have results from more Republicans who vote on the day of, and then votes that are still coming in or yet to be counted, or absentee ballots or mailed in, etc., from people who voted early, and that if, say, Trump is up in Pennsylvania, there will be an urge from Florida to try to call it for Trump, despite the fact that many votes are outlying. Like, we are going to see that, almost certainly. Whether it's Pennsylvania or somewhere else, we're going to have a Trump lead get called by Fox, and then the courts try to stop the counting of the rest. Will happen. Will happen.
And we should expect it, and as viewers and Democrats, hopefully have people there expecting that too. I don't know. I always feel like there's a team of people who would stop a virus from spreading all over the world, but it turns out like we are the adults in the room, and we're just in front of our computers, or like not stopping things from spreading.
Yeah. I 100% agree. If no lesson can be taken away from the Trump presidency, it is exactly that. There is no Jimmy Buckets in the room.
There's no Mori in the house.
There is no Dr. James Naismith Buckets Esquire
There's
waiting
no
to take the reins.
the logo, Allen Iverson on everyone's jersey.
We need some heat culture on this nation.
We need some Utah Jazz culture. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay, I know you want to get super jazzy. Tatum Gobert rumors are flying.
Does cookies tell people to vote or not?
Fuck no.
I was thinking last night, like, Democrats are spending this week shaming each other for reminding each other to vote, and the Republicans are just listening to the Dedication 2, the Drought 3, the Carter 3.
I just mean, yeah, vote if you want. I'm not going to tell people not to vote. If you're in a swing state, that would probably be the best result, is going out to vote. If you're in a state like New York and you don't want to be a voting king, I'm not going to shame you for that either.
When I went to vote, it took around an hour. It was exciting. The mood was good, but then it was very, very sad because the line ran parallel to a food line for homeless people, and it just felt like this country was broken. Like, I was standing there in line with people who were excited, and we're in New York. It was the Lower East Side, and I'm sure the majority of those people were Biden supporters, and we were excited to do the one thing that felt like real instead of tweeting something or yelling at a bar. This felt real, and it was emotional, and it was huge, next to a line of Chinese people waiting to get food, and it just felt like things were broken. I was heartened and disheartened at the same time.
So you got to the end of the line and you were handed some soup.
It was running in the opposite direction. And it was orderly because of coronavirus, obviously, and social distancing. And Chinese people who didn't know how to speak English, probably most of them older than the age of 60, were just like in Chinese, like, is this the line for food? And I was like, I can't handle this. It's really weird.
Yeah, I mean, we've really become the we battled it out with the Soviet Union, made fun of their bread lines.
Yeah.
Here we are, a
Dude.
democracy that seems compromised, waiting for food in long lines. We did it. We broke the commies, took down that wall.
Right. Are you a I would die before our country became what Russia is. It's like, I don't know, man. I was frustrated and kind of heartbroken about it.
Well, Mr. Kuo, bring down that wall. Tear down that wall.
Defund the wall. Abolish.
And now
that
we're
wall.
building walls. Jesus Christ.
Allegedly.
I thought we broke the commies. What is going on with your guy Lil Wayne?
I love him as a rapper. Like, the Hot Boys saved me from the 90s rap despair that I was feeling. I was like, oh my God, another Nas record. And then I found out about Manny Fresh and these rappers, the Hot Boys. And it gave me life as a young man. And to see him in 2020 as an adult supporting Trump, I'm like, yo, he's lived a very complicated life. I'm happy he's alive. Remember, he almost died? I'm just like, whatever, Wayne. Just do your thing. You're not going to switch my vote, even though I love you as a rapper.
Yeah, I mean, there's two topics here. There's the Hot Boys and Lil Wayne, and their emergence in, I want to say, about 1998, 1999 is when they signed that $30 million deal with Cash Money and Universal Records. And that was when we first started seeing the Juvenile Ha video being played nationally. And I remember, I can't remember if they're on the cover of, some rap publications and things like that. But that was really when they kind of appeared, at least to East Coast heads like ourselves. I was not aware of what they were doing prior to Universal kind of blowing them up nationwide.
Yo, this is kind of pre-internet, right?
Internet existed, but it was not, there was no rap internet.
Yeah.
No. It was all still BET, MTV. Those were at Hot 97. And they started playing Juvenile Ha on Hot 97 all the time. Then it had the one with the terrible Jay-Z remix.
Jay-Z was in his prime still, so.
He was in his prime. It was just a bad verse. He didn't ride the beat right. Was that the one where he's send shots through your fitted cap? Or something like that. But, yeah, he added nothing to the record, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, Cash Money, I'm not going to say I made fun of them when they came out, because Ha was such an undeniably great record. But yeah, who knew that crew would end up with someone like Lil Wayne, who literally 21, 22 years later is posing with your guy Donald Trump. Your two mans out there wearing some odd V-neck sweater
That
with
was
a great
weird, some preppy
turtleneck.
shit. Yeah. Some boating club stuff. I don't even know what people call that.
So, as you said a second ago, this is complicated. I don't know, man. Wayne did not seem to embrace the BLM movement either. said some bullshit along the lines of like, if it doesn't affect you directly, how can you care? I'm with you. He has lived an intriguing life. He was a child star, and we know that child stars often have some psychological issues. We know that he had a odd relationship with Birdman. That was
Not Chris Anderson,
Not
the
Chris
rapper
Anderson.
Birdman
Yeah.
from
And-
the meme.
Right, and you know, that relationship was both a father figure, but someone who seemed to take advantage of him economically. Again, fraught stuff. Who he had a fallout with. I don't know if they're close now. But yeah, Wayne is a tortured individual. He's taken a lot of drugs.
Yep.
But still, it kind of goes under the same Kanye banner. Like, a lot of people have had it rough. A lot of people have had weird lives. They didn't have to do that. Like, you didn't have to go meet with Donald Trump. You could have had a weirder outlet. You know, you could have, like, decided to, like, poop on the street or something. Like, it didn't have to be meeting Donald Trump and endorsing him for president. That didn't have to be the outlet for your years of anguish or, you know, missed therapy sessions.
Well, I think when I say complicated, I mean everything you said was true. I also think that what they're doing is a thing. It's a thing that I think is understandable. What Kanye, Pump is different, but Pump is in there. It's like these people who maybe have felt like outcasts from their music scene, their society, whatever, their lives. Like Lil Wayne is running around talking about how he's an alien. Like I don't think there's any mistake that he feels a certain way about life, and I don't think they follow like legislation and tax code that much, but I do think they see a dividing line between like rich people who side with Donald Trump and like Democrats, and their community who were probably all Democrats being like, Lil Wayne, vote Democrat. And he was like, no, I'm rich. Why can't I be just like a rich white guy? I am going to do what rich people do because I've earned it. And I don't agree with Donald Trump's anything, but what Lil Wayne and Kanye are doing, I think, is a bigger kind of like more complicated American history story.
I think that's probably correct. I don't think that's inaccurate at all in terms of analysis. And there's also, in the case of both of these dudes, and Little Pump is just a kid. It's hard to even
He's just trying to
compare
get
him.
hit likes or whatever.
I don't even think so. I think he just thought he was going to get taxed and started yelling about it.
He did. He
Yeah,
did.
that's what I'm
yell about
saying.
taxes.
He's a kid. You know, Wayne and Kanye are known eccentrics. They enjoy being eccentric. They enjoy being a controversial figure. And this is such a low-hanging fruit where you can say, oh, I'm going to diverge from the opinion of, as you said, the Democrats, of even my own community, because I'm rich and I'm different and I'm a celebrity. And Donald Trump is rich and a celebrity. And I think you're right. I think that plays into it. But there are also two particular kinds of guys whose musical careers and relevancy is not the same now that it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, depending on, you know, when you look at their career trajectory.
Amazing careers, yeah.
Incredible careers.
Yep.
But they're not that same person. And them being in the news for supporting Donald Trump is in some ways its own regard. It's a tantrum. It's a kid acting out. Some attention and being told to go sit in the corner might be better than him saying, hey, go out there and vote for Joe Biden. And people say, yeah, I know. Yeah, no shit, dude. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like Tim Cook took a seat with Donald Trump. A lot of businessmen, you know, kiss the ring kind of. And when you're Lil Wayne and one of your PR person's like, yo, Donald Trump wants to meet you. He's like, you mean the president of the United States wants to meet me, Lil Wayne? It's like, yeah, he wants to take a photo with you. It's like, I'm going, you know? Right. And it's just like, it is something that I feel like is less about politics and more about these guys' lives and the life of this community, this rap community, this, you know, this is about race and this is about them emoting. And I find it to be, I can empathize with a lot of what they're trying to do. Like you said, you know, it's like to see time go by and people not pay attention to you, but have probably like the most successful careers of anybody in the game. This is a complicated like world for Lil Wayne and Wayne's World, and I see that as I see that photo and this news story as kind of a byproduct of that more than if he believes in our president's policies.
Like, I don't think he has a deep grasp of the president's policies, but I also don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, he doesn't seem like he has a grasp of reality, right? Like,
I think that's a better way of putting it.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Lil Wayne is a dumb person. I just
No,
don't
he's
know
a
what he's
genius.
paying attention to. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think he's smart as shit.
Yeah,
He-
he's smarter than everybody.
but
yeah.
he also does not have a lot of education. I mean, he was a star at like 14 years old.
And also, like, he doesn't care. He's a musician, and he's the best musician. And, like, it's hard to do everything. Like, a chef shouldn't have to be an activist. It's cool when they are, but when they aren't, it's very clear. And I don't think Lil Wayne has to be political. The dude has probably nothing left to prove, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, on one hand, he should absolutely be brutally clowned for this. This is sucker shit. He
Yeah,
should
I
be
mean, we
made
can
fun
make
of. He should be
jokes, for
roasted.
sure.
I mean, he should be scorned. Like, he should not be able to live this down. This is so whack. It's so whack. That said, I don't think just because he is a younger black guy, he should be held to different standards from, as you were saying, a Tim Cook or a white guy. Like, oh,
Peter
just because,
Thiel.
yeah, all you guys are bad. All you guys are supporting the wrong side. You know, just because you're a white dude, you don't get a pass for voting for Donald Trump. Like, you're culpable. You know, it's in some ways victim blaming. You know, when you say, oh, it's the responsibility of black people black celebrities to talk about police brutality. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's
I
their responsibility. It's not white
Our-
people's
yeah, yeah.
responsibility.
Right.
It's not all of our collective responsibility. It's
Exactly.
the victims are the ones who are supposed to say, "Excuse me, don't do this." They are. They have been.
I agree. That's a
but-
really good point.
Yeah, but that said, like Wayne, like this is clown shit.
Oh yeah, jokes for days. Like, what is politics except jokes? Like, let's joke it up, you know. When you said a young man like Lil Wayne, I had to Google that. 38 years old.
Is he really?
He's young at heart, man. He is no boomer. Trust. But
Wow,
is
he's
he
12 years older than Anthony Bennett.
can he pop shove it yet? Is he pressure flipping yet?
I would not have guessed he was that old.
I would not either. He's
I
had
would
a
have.
very
I would
long
have said
career.
like mid 30s.
Yeah.
Just because Chief Keef is still like 19 or something. I think he's like early 20s.
Is he?
Look it up. Chief Keef
I
is
will.
so young. He's so young. He's like Derek Favors. He just will never not be
Yo,
under 30
he's
years
25.
old. That's what I mean.
And what in the hell? It's like Jason Tatum. He just turned 16.
Future Utah Jazz superstar Jason Tatum.
I mean, I had Lil Wayne before all this kerfuffle happened with politics. I was tweeting that I think actually it was related to politics as people were talking about Tupac and Kamala Harris. And I was like, Wayne is after Young Thug, he's my number 2 of all time. He might not be literally, but like one could argue that he's in that top tier, right?
For sure. Were you into his music in like the 500 Degrees era? Were you into that stuff, or did you, like myself, become a Wayne fan around like SQ4?
So the Hot Boys and Manny Fresh were someone when I interned at Elektra Records, some guy from the South turned me on to that stuff and changed my life. And I kind of went into a dip with rap music in that era, regretfully, because I got tricked by like drum and bass and jungle.
Oh, here we go.
I know. I'm not going to mention a certain grime rapper. Okay, well, 21 Savage. But I took a dip during that era when he went solo, and I went back and listened to those records years later. They're not as good, to be honest. Like those records are nice, but I think when the Carter one came out, I was like, what the hell? This guy is like unbelievable. And the Carter 2 and Dedication 1, Dedication 2 and Canal Street, the Drought 1 and 2 and 3. That era of Wayne, I thought, like, cemented him as an all-time great.
For me, it was a little bit before then, and I think it was SQ4. I forget the exact numbers. It was SQ3, SQ4, maybe SQ5. I did not hear the very first ones from that series, but that was when he was rhyming over a lot of other people's beats. That's, I mean, he was definitely the king of the mixtapes in that regard, and he did that a lot. And he would take your song and make it better. But I was shocked by how good he was, because early on when he was with the Hot Boys, he was kind of a mini BG. He did that
interesting. Yeah.
that little wobble flow. That
Yeah.
that little wobble delivery, which was BG, who was also dope. I love BG.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But Wayne evolved kind of into his own artist in those SQ tapes. And if you can find him and go back, they are outrageous, because all of a sudden you realize a lot of it was Jay-Z influence. A lot of it was East Coast influence. But he just started being able to, like, ride beats, and his delivery and cadence just became incredible. And then you saw him get better at, like, metaphors and vocabulary, and just became this monster at mastering that craft. And it really came together, like, in real time with that SQ series.
Yeah, I agree. I think post Hot Boys, I think he was trying to find his distinct. And you're right, he was a Lil BG, and I think he was trying to find his voice. And literally, he sounded like a rapping gremlin for a while, just like rap, 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 rap. And it was awesome. Like, if you listen to that now, it ages very well, but it's not the same. Like, it doesn't really, like, talk to his genius much. The Block is Hot went platinum. I didn't know that. It sold 1.4 million copies.
That's what I mean. They were successful, but I didn't really care about him as an artist. I liked him on Bling Bling and things like that.
Oh,
but
for sure.
I did not view him as a, like, emerging star. But the SQ tapes, I remember I was a little early to the party, at least in terms of people I was around, and I was like, this Wayne guy can really, really rap.
Yeah.
And that came out in 2002. So we're talking about literally another, 20 plus years ago, which is insane.
It's insane. And, like, the reason I loved him is, like, when he came out with the Carter, like, I Miss My Dogs was kind of like an emo kind of, he talks about his old boy band. And I love the fact that he was so damaged, so hilarious, and so emo. That combination was just, like, irresistible to me.
Just for those listeners who would be interested in listening to SQ4, as I have given it high recommendations, it is on DatPiff. So it actually is available. You can just go and download it or stream it. It's online, which I'm going to do immediately after dropping The Perfect Pod.
That's one of the best websites, like, in the history of the internet.
It might be the best.
It could be. That thing has given us so much for, like, 20 years, 15 years. I don't know. But I used to walk up and down Canal Street on my Samsung flip phone talking to my friends, being like, yo, get me Back Like Cook Crack 1 and 2. It's like, is Wayne's World out? What's the new drama tape? And that's when the Diplomats were big in New York. And in a lot of ways, I've said this before on the pod, like, I have no conception of time. I can't figure out what my life is. I feel like it's still that era. I'm like, I'm just going to go down to Canal Street and pick up the new Wayne.
Hey.
Like, yeah, I'm like, that was 17 years ago. I'm like, what do you mean?
No, if you had asked me how long ago SQ4 came out, the guess that I would have immediately made as I tried to do the math would have been very different. Oh, 12, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
18?
I mean, the Carter came out in 2004. It's crazy. Like, I was already a jaded DJ by that time, just, like, grouchy as hell.
I mean, look, Zoomers like ourselves.
One of us,
learned about Wayne in the womb.
yeah.
Banging that SQ4.
Oh, man. That was rough.
So, we got a couple new items in the cookie store. There are some new hats. Oh, I retract that. The lavender hat, which pops up and periodically sells out, and then periodically pops up again and sells out, is back periodically. And there's a new hat, which is a Realtree camo hat. And there is also a restock on the black long-sleeved, it's crew neck, the black crew neck that has basketball embroidered in pink along the left breasticle.
Let your freak flag fly and pick up that basketball sweatshirt.
Yeah, those are great. Those are great. They will not be around that long.
Nope.
And but you know who got first crack? You know who had a chance to get them before they hit the streets?
The P Mob? Mob Peep?
Lil Peep. Patreon guys, Patreon gals, everyone at Patreon. They got a first crack. Anyway, welcome to all the new Patreons who signed up.
We love you guys.
And in interest to that, we're going to talk a little basketball here. This is going to be a slightly shorter episode than normal because we did have the Daryl Morey emergency pod a few days ago. So this might be a little normal, a little shorter. But let's talk some hoops, Quo.
Let's do this.
The Nets have hired Steve Nash as the coach. When he was announced as the coach, there's some fun quotes by Kyrie and Kevin Durant, kind of talking about how everyone was a coach. Who's not a coach in this team? Maybe Karis LeVert will coach a game. Who knows? Joe Harris, do some coaching. They added yet another coach. How many coaches can one team have? And it's the god himself, Mike D'Antoni.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Amari Stoudemire. He is
Forgot
mine.
him too. I forgot him. And Raja Bell and Tim Thomas and Quentin Richardson.
Yo, shout out to the Nets for being interesting. This is cool. I'm into it, man. D'Antoni has taken a siesta, a little sabbatical before with the Sixers, where he's come off like a long gig, and he's like, you know what? I love the game. I'm going to sit on the sidelines and help these teams, this team, the Sixers, succeed, and he's going to do it again before he gets, what is he, 69 years old now? Nice. But 70 maybe next season.
The Brett Brown coaching tree continues to thrive.
I mean, we love D'Antoni, and I think this is really cool because coaching sucks, man. And I want, selfishly as a fan, I want him to coach my team.
What do you mean coaching sucks?
I think it's a grind, and he's 70, and he may be like, oh, it's much easier just like, that's why I called it a sabbatical. I'm just going to hang out, do my own like little self-discovery thing for a little while.
These guys clearly love coaching. I would not say they think coaching sucks.
But why do some of them walk away from it if it isn't taxing?
Well, he clearly didn't walk away from it.
But why didn't he wait for, not that there's one available, but why isn't he not waiting? Why didn't he sign with a team as a head coach?
Who would that be?
Well, I mean, that's a good question because those are drying up. But
I think he would have taken that job if it was there, but it doesn't seem like it is. Philly, there was a rumor. There was a rumor about Indiana. I don't think there's a job for Mike D right now. So you might as well roll the winners, go over there and hang with Nash and Amare, and be in New York with KD and Kyrie. That's a fun year.
And he's already won a championship with the Knicks, so coming back home but not with the Knicks is really fun. He's done it all, man. He's the king of New York.
They say sometimes. If you walk by the site where Madison Square Garden used to be, you can hear the Mike D'Antoni championship banner flapping in the breeze. They say you can hear that.
They say when you walk around Midtown and you see where MSG once stood, you can hear the popping of a Pringles can in the background. That's a championship, baby.
The champagne bottles from the Linsanity championship team that Mike D helmed when Carmelo came in and came back from injury and bought into the system, became an astounding passer. Built the team around Jeremy Lin. You can hear the squeaks.
You can't just pop one, man. Multiple championships like a Pringles chip.
So I don't know if Mike D'Antoni will have a real role in the coaching of this team because there are so many guys involved. That said, I would not say that he's calling Steve Nash sir. He is the god. He is the offensive brainiac.
He was Nash's coach.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I don't really think Nash is going to make decisions that offensively D'Antoni doesn't agree with.
Yeah, I agree. And also Kevin Durant. And, like, there's enough geniuses in the room here that, and enough nice, the disposition of D'Antoni and Nash, I think, will work fine. You know, if D'Antoni's like, hey, I think we should rethink our strategy against the Knicks and maybe bench all of our stars, I think Nash would just be like, all right, sounds good to me.
I agree. I'm actually reasonably more worried about them if I'm an East Coast contender with D'Antoni in the building than I was before. Because he's great at this. He will push his agenda, which is right, which leads to explosive offense. And it's a team that has
Oh my God, some weapons,
two
man.
incredible weapons in Kyrie and KD. We'll see how KD recovers, but theoretically, one of the greatest offensive scoring forwards of all time, and the most skilled backcourt player
We've ever seen.
that we've ever seen, and that D'Antoni has ever had besides James Harden, including Nash. But you also have guys like Karis LeVert and Dinwiddie and Joe Harris. Like, they have a lot of weapons.
For now.
For now. They could add Bradley Beal. You know, we don't know what they'll do. But D'Antoni lending his brilliance in terms of offensive firepower to a team that has those kind of weapons, it's a little concerning.
How so?
I mean, you put Durant at the 5, like, cool, we score 180 points per 100 possessions.
Oh, concerning for the East. Yeah.
Yes, I'm saying for rivals, like, oof.
Yeah.
I don't know how they'll defend, which is always a knock on Steve Nash as a member of the Suns or on D'Antoni. But this team is not necessarily built to defend. That's true. But
For now, yeah.
Yowza in
Yeah.
terms of their offensive potential.
I know it's cool. I don't know if their entire season rests on Durant returning to form, and there's been a lot of talk about how that might not be feasible. But he's going to be good because he's still young and has been given time to heal. So we're not going to see this explosive weapon as a team for a while, right? Because they're going to have to ease into it. But I agree. Shout out to Brooklyn. I really love what they did, especially with these. It's like what you always say when you were talking about pre-Morey Sixers. It's like, do these small, smart things. Every move should be a valuable action, sort of like on the court. Like, don't hire just a guy to be a meat shield. Hire someone who contributes. Hire someone who fits. And they've done everything. Getting rid of Atkinson, I think, was a mistake, but there seems to be more to that story than we'll ever know. But I love what they're doing, and I hope they win a chip.
I think Atkinson was a good coach. I think he is a good coach. I interviewed him once. I found him a smart, nice guy. Knew what he was doing. But I don't know. I look at trying to balance Durant, Kyrie with a modern offense. This is what it requires. You have to hire guys like this.
And I think we are about to get into some serious NBA offseason shenanigans, but I don't think the Nets team will look remotely similar to what it looks like now. I think there's a lot of urgency because of the age and wear and tear on their two super duper stars. And I think Joseph Tsai didn't buy this team just to wait. I think he has expressed an urgency with these two signings that I expect nothing less than a wholesale kind of move for a third star.
I agree. There's no way you acquire Kyrie and KD and say, let's wait a little while. They waited 1 year, and they knew they were going to wait a year. So yes, it's systems on fire right now. Like, let's go.
Yeah, Jared
I think-
Allen,
I
Kuruks.
I think Beal seems to be the guy I would target. I would not be surprised if they went after Oladipo. That's the kind of guy that they're looking for, a wing. And those are the two best that seem to be available. And they do have some good pieces because they've patiently assembled a roster. And they really did not have to shed young talent because they assigned both KD and Kyrie, which is like a huge difference between, say, the Lakers getting AD via trade versus LeBron as a free agent.
There's going to be so much fast and furious action in the NBA coming up that it's kind of hard to talk about the Nets as a fully formed idea. They're one of the teams that I think, with Daryl Morey now in Philly, that are going to the breaking news will be eye-opening, I think.
You know, you thought we were done talking about Philly.
Never.
we were
Wait,
just gonna
me
fade.
or everyone else?
You thought
Oh,
the
yeah.
days of chatting about
Done
Philly
and done.
were over. They're going to fade into disrepair. They're going to have to trade one of their stars, blah, blah, blah.
Just happy little munchkins with their team. Just
No,
please.
sorry, Bob. Sixers Magellan back.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to hop on this orbit.
So, in our emergency pod about the reported hiring or soon to be hiring of Daryl Morey, the godfather of basketball analytics, who spent the last decade in Houston and is now going to be the Sixers general manager, according to all reports, for a 5-year contract. The Sixers suddenly have a competent front office. They made a couple other hires like Sam Cassell. They hired a defensive coordinator away from the Pacers, even a couple more. So they now have a front office where a week ago there was no one. Now they have a respectable and talented front office and capable stewardship for an organization that had been adrift. Anyway, what I want to go to here is this. What is Daryl Morey going to do? Because one of the fun things about him being hired is that he's not predictable. And we don't know. We don't know what his vision is. And we're playing catch up. So there's a lot of talk about which guys are Daryl Morey players. Is Embiid a Daryl Morey guy? No, because he traded away all the centers. Is Ben Simmons a Daryl Morey guy? Well, no, because he doesn't shoot threes. What's a Daryl Morey guy? What is that?
I think there's two Daryl Morey guys, and Ben and Joe qualify as the first kind, which is a superstar. I think Daryl Morey covets superstars for a reason. They're the most valuable players in the game. He's shown this in Houston. He's always trying to acquire the Westbrooks, the Hardens. You know, he identified the value in Harden, kind of tricked Presti. And then there's another guy, which is the Donwell Houses of the world, the PJ Tuckers of the world, who is playing abroad. I think those two bookends are Daryl Morey guys. I think he finds value in the top and the bottom.
It's the same guy who put together a whole campaign and successfully wooed Dwight Howard away from the Lakers. You know, to say he doesn't believe in centers. Well, that's clearly not true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think there's a specific archetype other than like James Harden that you can say that's a Morey guy. Yep. His shot chart, everything about him, that's a Morey guy. I think you can easily say Embiid is a Morey guy. You can say
yeah.
Simmons, sure, he's a Morey guy too. Yeah, great. You know, one dude that I'm not sure about is Tobias Harris. We've poked some fun. We've called him net zero on his very podcast.
On the court, net zero.
Oh, it seems like a great guy.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, was active during BLM, a leader, great dude seemingly.
Great
I don't
news.
know him personally. I'm just saying he seems awesome.
His Boban relationship is a good one.
He's a New York guy. How can you be mad at that? You know, I mean, New York guys, great. But on the court, he's been a bit of an average Joe. I decided to dig a little into the numbers to look at Tobias and his counterparts on the Sixers and to see how they fit together. Because we get so much talk about how Ben and Joe can't fit together. We don't really talk about Tobias, and there was a perception that he did fit with them just because he could shoot some threes. You'll be surprised by these results. So here we go. When Tobias is out there with Ben and Joe, he averaged 14.8 points per 36 minutes on a true shooting percentage of 50.5.
That's not good.
Fucking terrible.
That's not good.
Terrible. In comparison to other guys on the Sixers with Ben and Joe, he was worse than Jay Rich. He was worse than Ennis. He was worse than Korkmaz. He was worse than Thibault, at least according to the vectors of efficiency and scoring volume. You know, like Thibault only scored 10 points per 36 minutes, but he was much, much more efficient. Mm-hmm. So anyway, if you got Tobias Harris, who's not a great passer, he's not a great ball handler, he's not a versatile defender, his best skill other than scoring would be rebounding, which is kind of redundant with Ben and Joe, he's clearly not giving you anything out there when he's with your other two superstars. That is a problem. And I think there are some... It's not a walking bucket. Yeah. And I think it makes sense because, to his credit, the same factors that sort of derailed their 4 big man lineup affect him potentially even more than the other dudes. He's a natural power forward who's being asked to play essentially shooting guard. And as a fairly slow, taller guy who plays on the perimeter, I gotta say, life is not easy when you have quicker guys guarding you on the perimeter all freaking day. Mm-hmm. That, you know, they wheedle around and get their hands on the ball. You can't dribble. They deflect passes. You try to drive, they cut off the lane. Like, it sucks. And I feel like Tobias Harris kind of had some hesitation on the perimeter because guys closed out faster than he was used to. He didn't feel comfortable really dribbling around them. And I think, you know, to his credit, that was a result of the Sixers calzone inside a meatball sub, inside a manicotti roster composition.
Delicious.
You know? So, I'll say this, though. When Simmons was on the court with Tobias and no Joel Embiid, all of a sudden, Tobias was scoring 23 points per 36 minutes with a 59% true shooting percentage.
That's good.
That's a star.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a star.
Yeah.
So there's something really interesting happening here with this trio. That the poor fit is not Ben and Joe, it's fucking Tobias. And that's not to say it's his fault. When he's with Ben, he becomes a star. When he's with Ben and Joe, he sucked, at least last year. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because he and Joe like to go to the same places. Short corner, elbow, free throw extended, you know, up fake at the top of the key, take 2 dribbles, take a shitty 15-footer. Like, they kind of do the same stuff, even though they're very different players. So there's something to be said about Tobias and figuring out a way to use him. So that's basically saying when he's out there with Ben and Joe, he's Cam Reddish. When you take Joe off the court, he becomes Brandon Ingram. There's a valuable player in there somewhere. I just don't know how you get him out. And that's, you know, what Daryl Morey has to figure out. So my question to you is this, after I've just given you a hard sell on Tobias Harris. You are the Knicks' opaque general manager cabal. You're whoever is actually making decisions within that group.
Let me turn down System of a Down to listen to this question. Okay, I'm ready.
After what I've just told you about Tobias Harris, pretending I was giving you the spiel, I'm saying, look.
You're Daryl Morey, right?
Look, this guy. Look at these numbers. He's Brandon Ingram. He's good. He's 27 years old. He gets paid too much. I know. This guy can be a very legitimate number 1, number 2 scorer if he's in the right circumstances, which we don't have here in Philly. What does it take for you to take him off my hands?
Breathtaking contract. 34 million, 36 million, 38 million, 39 million.
Yeah, I've heard about all that. Yeah.
And the Knicks have been rumored to, I love this, and I know it's annoying for Knicks fans to hear this, but they've been rumored to be on the market for a bad contract for more assets like draft picks and young players. So they're willing to take on a contract like this, which is it's probably the hardest contract in the league to take right now. That's of a player who's a net zero. I would do it if I was the Knicks, if you gave me any combination, and I don't think Sixers draft picks are going to be that good. I don't know if they hold any rights to some better ones.
What do you want? What's the vig? What's the vig here, Quo? Just give me the vig. Give me the vig.
I want Matisse or Zaire and a pick, or even throw Shake in there. I want 2 of your young guys, and it doesn't have to be. I believe Zaire is gettable. If you can throw 2 of 3 of those young guys in, and a conditional pick, like a second-round pick in 2 years, I'm doing it.
That's not a bad trade. I mean, if you were the Knicks.
Yeah, I'd do it.
You're like, look, Tobias Harris can come here and be a 22-point-per-game scorer. He's pretty good. He's from New York.
Yeah.
And we'll get some young guys. And you know what? Maybe in 2 years, we'll just flip Tobias again. We could do that.
He's tradable.
The problem with Philly, of course, is that if you do that, you don't get anything back. You're just cutting salary.
Right.
So you're not better off. You don't.
No, you're worse off.
Exactly. You're clearly worse because Tobias at least was giving you good production while he was out there with Ben. Even if his production aside, Ben and Joe was very sus. Mm-hmm. So Philly can't really do a straight dump.
No,
The
it would
question
have,
is,
yeah.
I'm Daryl Morey again. Now you're my man, Sam Presti. And I'm like, Sam, I'm going to tell you the deal, and then you're going to tell me what's the vig. The deal is Tobias for Chris Paul. What's the vig?
I wouldn't
what
do that.
what will it take? What does it take? I know it's tough. I know
Yeah.
you don't want him, but what does it take?
I would say, okay, Morey, you're my dude, even though you tricked me into giving you James
I just
Harden.
gave you so many draft picks, dude. You knew the Frittata man wanted Russ. You knew I was out. I
Listen.
told you I was out. I unloaded the whole Rockets future
It's
for
like
you,
an egg
dude.
casserole, dude.
I paid it forward.
I know. And I'm Sam Presti. I got so many picks in the chamber that I don't really need more picks. Picks are always great because I can flip them for useful players or young players. But I'm good with picks through the Paul George trade. So I think Chris Paul is a clearly better player than Tobias Harris. You're going to have to give me, again, like my boy Leon Rose in New York, you're going to have to give me 2 of your 3 young players. 2 of Thibault, Zaire Smith, and or Shake Milton.
I do feel like the price would be higher though with CP3 involved than a
So-
straight dump.
I wasn't done yet.
God damn it. Okay, deal, and moving on.
Yes, election stops now. I want some first round picks from you. So I don't want the conditional second. I want some bona fide first.
Okay, I'll give you your own pick back, which is pick number 21 this draft. You can use it
Valuable.
right away.
There's value. Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I will give you Sixers top 10 protected pick in 2 years because I can't trade next year since I don't have this year's.
Oh, that's kind of not enough, but
I know it's tough. It's really tough.
Because-
it's tough to figure
right.
out what Sam Presti would take, and you're like, dude, come on, it's CP3, man.
Yeah.
Look, you were executive of the year. You looked brilliant. You almost beat us. Game 7. You almost beat us.
because
Don't you want Chris Paul to get that chance? Greatest. You saw it firsthand. One of the greatest point guards of all time. 2 years left on the contract.
Yeah.
Bring him to Philly. Let him play with Ben and Joe.
But then I'm looking at what I can get for Chris Paul. Okay, so the Clippers have already given me, Sam Presti, everything that they've got. So there's no deal there for Chris Paul unless it's a 3-team deal. I'm looking at New York, actually. My boy Leon Rose, genius GM. And I think he'll take on Chris Paul's contract, and it doesn't have to be the money doesn't have to match necessarily with New York.
No money has to come back at all.
So maybe I can get Mitchell Robinson. Maybe I can get their number 8. Maybe I can get the god RJ Barrett. But I'll take it over Tobias Harris's contract.
I agree. I think that's the real stumbling block here is that if I'm OKC, I say, I'll trade you Chris Paul, but it's got to be Horford because Horford makes a lot less money and Horford's got a $15 million buyout in the last year of that contract.
He has value in the league right now.
It's got value. If I'm them, I'm like, cool. I'm installing Horford into my lineup. He's going to be pretty good, and I'm going to try to flip him at the deadline. I'm going to try to flip him next offseason when he has 1 year left, and actually end up getting a pick for him or something.
The first thing I would ask if I was Presti would be like, CP3 for Simmons straight up. What, you want to do it? I would ask for that, right?
I mean, that's never going to happen.
No, but I would start there for leverage as Sam
Dude,
Presti.
come on, these guys are friends. This is me and you talking trades. You don't need to play your little mental games like, oh God, he wants Simmons.
I would ask for that. I think every team should ask Morey what it would take to get Ben Simmons.
We're talking about Daryl Morey, man. Come on.
I know, but Harden, I don't know. There's rumors that there's people guessing that Morey might ask for Harden, but that's a really uncreative thought because people are just like connecting A to B, and that's not how Morey thinks. But Harden is a really awesome player.
Awesome player. If he was available, I think you would have to consider it, but I'm not sure Morey even wants to be on a team with Harden.
I'm not convinced he does. I think
from what we've heard, from our sources, we have mutual sources on this one, was that Harden didn't really like being there. And that Harden was the one who instigated the trade for Westbrook, which kind of ultimately helped usher Morey out of the organization. And he didn't seem to really give a fuck about that trade. He did overpay, and he didn't seem to care a lick. So I don't think there's any incentive for Morey to say, I need to go get Harden. I mean, Harden's awesome. I don't think he would be opposed to Harden joining his team because he's an absolute superstar and kind of the icon and the embodiment of his worldview. But I don't think he's necessarily itching to get Harden back via trade. And
remember, I'm going to bring this up for 5 years. Morey is a fan of Broadway and entertainment. I think he would say, no, I've done the Harden thing. Harden's amazing. I took out a full-page ad in Houston to thank James Harden. But I got Ben Simmons and Embiid, Showtime, right? This is the new thing. This is the new show. This is entertainment. And I think just to keep himself interested, he doesn't take on Harden again.
I agree, because with James Harden, you're trying to do the same thing again. And you've tried it with Dwight Howard. You've tried it with no center. You've tried it with Chris Paul.
Clint Capella, the Swiss block.
Yeah, what was
Chocolate?
it? The Alp? So, generally speaking, he's done this. It's old news.
Yeah, yep. I think he's moved on.
He went really far. They came very close, and I'm sure he would have loved to win a title with James Harden, but I don't think that's sticking in his craw as much as the hope that he can win a title, period. So I would say this about the duo in Philly. I've been very vocal about the fact that I think they're deeply underrated by Sixers Nation and by the national media as well, that these guys are that legit, that they are top 10 players, maybe even better than that in the right circumstances.
Morey might turn Simmons into a top 3.
I think it's on the table.
Yeah,
and again, you know this is a pro Ben Simmons podcast because we're right.
For sure, yeah.
But it's on the table. It is absolutely on the table.
Yeah.
And I guess where I was just going with that was we've seen him with arguably the greatest offensive player of all time. But we have never seen him with two guys who are this good on both sides of the ball. And there's always been a knock on those Rockets teams, and it obviously was amplified by the hiring of Mike D'Antoni, that they didn't play defense. They weren't good enough on that side of the ball.
They were fine.
I think they're fine. They're fine. Played well in the bubble.
Yeah.
They're fine. But we have not seen what he can do with two elite defenders and placing other guys around them. We could be watching Morey ball on a defensive side that we have never actually seen before. They could be a insanely good defensive team if he brings in components like Sam Hinkie was clearly trying to do, Covington, Jeremy Grant, etc. Morey brings some of those guys into the fold, look the fuck out.
Yeah, and I think we fall into traps as fans, because we want to be able to make sense of this NBA world. So people have to behave like where we put them. And Maury, like we keep on saying, like you just said earlier, his number one concern is value, valuable shots, valuable contracts. He is like a pioneer in the cap, I think, the way he works the cap. He's just somebody we can't just say, like, well, he doesn't believe in big men, so there goes Joe, like they're going to play without a center. I'm like, you're misreading the thing. He saw a sliver of value in a point of view in moving Clint Capella, who he signed, who he re-signed. He liked Clint Capella.
Who he drafted and re-signed.
Yeah. He was a Yao Ming guy. So, like, I think to say he exists in the way we last remember him is just a mistake. And I think he, in a nanosecond, could adapt to this roster and figure out a way to win games.
Yeah, and again, I just think the defensive thing is worth mentioning because of what you just brought up. That this is about shot value, expected value, and that applies on both sides of the ball. Mm-hmm. It's been easier for him to find market inefficiencies to exploit on the offensive side because he had James Harden.
Yeah.
This team happens to have two insanely good defensive players. So when you take that into account, well, he might look at defense with this team and say, that's where I can change things. I can ply my craft on the defensive side and do some really inventive stuff.
Wells Fargo enforcers? You love to see
punchers.
It. He's got to sign the Morai, whichever Morai comes along. He's got to sign one of those guys then.
Gotta have one. But speaking of disruptors, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. For what?
To you.
Oh, yeah, I like
you
this.
You and the tech overlords that you feverishly support have purchased the Utah Jazz.
Oh.
The Smiths of Qualtrics. So, quote, what's the VIG?
You've asked me what the VIG is 3 times already on this pod. I think 2.5 maybe. The VIG is... This is interesting, right? Because, okay, the NBA has now Ron Adive in Sacramento, who's a tech guy. I believe he sells, like, processing software. Joseph Tsai takes over the Nets. He's on obviously Alibaba. Steve Ballmer, Microsoft, changed the way we look at computing and we think about the digital world. He's kind of insanely influential. Paul Allen, rest in peace, right? So he was the god. He was the first guy to buy an NBA franchise from the tech world, I believe. Mark Cuban, High Def, and now Ryan Smith, who sells, I believe, some back-end marketing strategy software about analytics and usage. I'm kind of into this, man. I think this is where the world is going, and these new money people being interested in the NBA, I think will push. It will have, dare I say, a trickle-down effect to the way the game, the product we see, because the influence of Mark Cuban should not be ignored in the entire league, and I think it, that's why we have people like Daryl Morey and Sam Presti and these good thinkers in the NBA, and I just want us to move forward away from boomers. Can I just have that?
Yes. I also would say, as we've seen throughout all of society, that we've given tech guys a bit of a benefit of the doubt that we did not give to, say, slave ship builders or
What? Where are you going with it?
Iron magnates. Like, those old evil guys are bad dudes who live in mansions along the Gold Coast. Tech guys kind of turned out to be just as bad, right?
I disagree here. We don't have to have this discussion.
Are you sure?
Hit us up on Patreon, subscribe for $5, and hit up us on our store. This will be available
You
on
claim
iTunes.
society is flawed, and yet you live within it. Interesting.
We don't have to. We could do a terrestrial radio show.
Oh, totally.
But I think to ignore technology and to demonize it is
Not what I'm doing, Quo.
to ignore these people in charge of technology and demonizing them.
I'm not ignoring them, nor am I demonizing them. I'm saying I don't think there's any guarantee that tech guys rolling into the NBA is a net positive, unlike, say, a net zero.
Oh, I'm not sure of that either. I mean, they're not just one person. All of these 6 or 7 guys have distinct worldviews, right? I'm rest in peace, Paul Allen. But I think they all think wildly differently. The tech world is the world. I don't think we should call it a sector anymore. It is just a living, breathing part of our existence. So either we get with it or we just like talk about it as if it was far away.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what's the difference. Like, what does it matter? Again, I'm not disputing that, yes, there are a lot of guys who are working in tech who are now buying teams. That's because an enormous amount of wealth has been generated by tech companies. And part of that is a lack of regulation, but different conversation. But still, tech companies are incredibly wealthy. The people who found them are incredibly wealthy, like this guy in Utah
Ryan
who
Smith.
sold it for $8 billion. You know, again, I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I've looked at his political donations. Seems like a dyed-in-the-wool blue dog. But I just mean overall, I don't know that I can say the NBA is in better hands because the owners made money in tech.
Oh, I'm not saying that. Ron Diva has not been successful.
I guess I'm saying what does it matter? I'm not disputing any of the accuracy of the point.
The board of directors shifting towards a specific kind of industry is a big deal. The board of directors being the 29 owners of the NBA. There's one off to the side in white face paint.
Governors?
Governors. There's one governor staring at a candle alone in the food court. But the other 29, like a share leaving the pool of 29 is always a big deal. And a few of them leaving for a specific kind of fan. I mean, Ryan Smith, said he grew up watching the Jazz, and he's been a lifelong Utah guy. He wants to keep him in Utah. He bought the arena as well, so everything looks like Utah Nation can stand up confidently when they accept Jason Tatum for their Frenchman, patient zero. But
well,
anyway.
I would certainly presume that the sale to him was to guarantee that franchise is going nowhere. And from his credentials as like a junior Jazz, Salt Lake City native, Brigham Young graduate, they sold it to the right guy. If that's a small market concern, which I think is valid.
Yeah, I think they passed it along. Their family friends, I believe. They just they shifted the power. They kind of like extended that wealth down, right, to the next generation. But better
than Seattle, who was like, okay, we'll sell it to these OKC guys. Now, don't you go moving it to OKC.
That's a travesty, man. There should be a team in Seattle. That's another pod, but maybe another pod series. But I think to your original question, which is a good one, like, what does it matter? Like, how is a tech person different than an oil person, right? And I do think there is an LOL quality to this. Like, Silicon Valley is a funny joke, right? These tech guys kind of become homogenous in a comedic way. But when you look deeper at just their like Wikipedia entries, they're like, oh, they're all very different and do very different things. I think the inclination to go into tech as somebody who is in their 20s, which all these guys did, I believe there is kind of a Wild West mentality to it and a kind of trailblazing, no pun intended, way to look at the business world and what you do. And I think everyone views themselves as like a disruptor and as somebody who could be on Shark Tank and start a business that sells sponges and make $1 billion or Spanx. It's like, I had the idea of Spanx every day, like, sure, but it takes a certain kind of person in this world, and there's only a handful of them. There's less than like 150 of them.
Well, this is where you run into a bit of a fundamental, like, I guess, duality of being the owner of an NBA team, is that it's such a privilege to be able to do it, especially if you're a basketball fan.
Oh my God.
There's only 30 teams. That's it.
29.
29 teams. Only 29 teams.
Oh yeah,
And a lot of them are never up for sale. Like the one that's been relegated. So to be in that fraternity, to have that privilege of owning an NBA team, it should be in some ways like a vanity project. Like I get to run an NBA team. I get to be the owner of the Utah Jazz. I'm a junior Jazz day one.
huge.
Like that's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah,
It's the coolest thing in the world if you were a basketball nerd. But you're also someone who made $8 billion as a businessman. And now you're like, I can merge these two things. I can merge being a businessman, such as owning a team and making money off of it in the basketball industry, with being an owner of a team, which is my love. And that duality is a bit of an issue because I don't think that the NBA necessarily needs to have owners who are like viewing this as a business. I like the vanity owner. I think that's way more fun. I like owners that are just there to tinker, that don't really care about the finances of the NBA or the league and like bullying the players out of a bigger share. So I feel like that an NBA team as like your industry is like kind of shitty.
and that's nothing has proven that to be true.
I guess I'm sorry. I guess where I was going with that was maybe there's a chance that some tech dudes have so much wealth that they can run this fiefdom without that sort of concern. But again, I just think like the kind of personality who made $8 billion on whatever the fuck his job was is not going to take a laissez-faire approach to running a basketball team. I'm sure it's the natural competitive juices are towards profitability and like higher profit margins and getting more of the money from the players and et cetera, et cetera.
And when you're ahead of an analytics company that ends up being worth a few $1 billion, I don't think you say, oh, I'm going to hire Isaiah Thomas to be president coach, or I'm going to hire Phil Jackson, right? Vivek Ranadive is a really entertaining thinker, and I don't agree with all of his op-eds, but they're fun. And he has not been necessarily successful in Sacramento, and he hired Vlade Divac, chain smoking, your boy, the chain smoking bearded legend. And he hired Peja Stojakovic, and it's clear that he's like more of a fan than a businessman here. But I don't think, first of all, I don't think running a team or organization or a starting lineup like a company is necessarily a bad idea. And if that company is something that you strive, I did barely research on Ryan Smith. I did not know who he was before this week. He has got a basketball court in his cafeteria in his offices. He's like one of those stereotypical, like, oh, we have a DJ in the office. We just hired a chess champion. We're not trying to run this like a corporate company. It's like, but it's still corporate, right? It's like, yeah, but we have a masseuse, or we all wear rollerblades in the office. I'm like, everyone tried that out in 2000, wherever, when Lil Wayne was hot. That was the vibe in business, like restructuring the way we think about business. And that has
You've been sitting in beanbag chairs since.
yeah, this is like the joke, right? This is why Silicon Valley is hilarious. And a lot of that has proved to be fraught. And now that all these successful people are getting older, they're like, oh, that was mismanaged. We shouldn't have hired a puzzle champion for like $200,000 a year. Like, we didn't have to do that, but it was an ethos. And I don't know if this ethos will trickle down to Rudy Gobert, but I like people who have had this experience in the world.
I also do think your point about everything being tech has created a bit of confusion where we still view tech through the prism of beanbag chairs and rollerblading in the office. You're like, no, those guys became the masters of the universe who have like done horrible, horrible things to the globe. And you're like, but the rollerbladers, they were fun, right? Like, no, they ended up not being fun. Sorry, no. They ended up being
We
like-
fundamentally
like the
disagree
coal
on
magnates.
this. Yeah, I mean, we'll always disagree on this, which is I'm okay with that. But like, there's a percentage of people who we perceive an individual will perceive to have done horrible things. And I don't think you get into a position like some of these guys get without a world of fucking controversy. And I think that some people, like our president, are ill prepared for the role they've been thrust in. And I think that is also in business. And business and politics are the same thing. You know, and we can see this in NBA organizations. Like, you're thrust into this power. I'm like, Phil Jackson doesn't actually want this GM smoke, right? Like, he's there and he's like, guys, I can't handle this. I'm going to go disappear again. And I think, I mean, I'm a beige dude, but like, life is complicated and all these tech guys are so different that it's hard to be like, they're just tech guys.
I mean, I'm not saying that they're all the same. I do think there are qualities of being hyper competitive and ruthless and driven and at times dishonest that can be viewed as traits that are fairly common in people who rise to the heights of monster tech companies that are these global leviathans. I think those traits could easily be put into a checklist. And it's not for every single one. It's not to say that they're all the same, but just the same as those would help you rise to the top of the restaurant world if you are the frittata man, they're also present in tech overlords. And I just think because of the perception of tech as being kind of goofy, as being nerdy, we kind of let it happen without realizing it.
It's just the people in power don't understand. I have this running thought, and I always say this on Twitter. It's like, sometimes I just want to hear what Tucker Carlson thinks the cloud is. You know, like, Tucker, tell me what the cloud is. I use him because the dog ate his homework. I'm like, you didn't back it up. You had this fire document, and you sent it in an envelope. It's like, give me your phone. I'm gonna put this fax app into your phone.
Yeah, weird how that disappeared.
But he thinks that we don't know about this stuff, you know, and we're just like, oh, why didn't you just like shoot that into the cloud and get it in 20 minutes? He thinks we don't know, and maybe his viewers don't know. So I'm always interested in that. Like, it's.
I mean, that's the key point. There was an article I think on HuffPo, but there've been a few over the last couple of years, of course, just about like the brain poisoning of boomers and how you become more susceptible to misinformation and scams, things like that. As you get older, you know, you have cognitive decline. And I think you're right. His audience is a very credulous group. He can say, the dog ate my hard drive. And 99% of the people who love Tucker Carlson will say, I hate when that happens.
Is that dog a Democrat? Does he play power forward for the Knicks and they get traded to the Clippers?
Was that a blue dog? Last thing, let's talk about back to basketball, back to your guys, the Utah Jazz. There are increasing rumors that the Beantown Celtics are interested in acquiring Rudy Gobert. They want a large Frenchman in the middle. What gets it done? What will the Jazz take for their first team all defensive player of the year, perennial all-star, guy who cries, guy who spreads COVID, he does it all, Rudy Gobert?
Kemba Walker, the Time Lord, maybe Tatum, and some draft picks.
You're Utah. Does Tatum get it done?
It's tough, though. As a player who's peaked already at the age of 17, it's just diminishing returns from here. We already have, like, a whirling dervish on the court taking 360 turnaround jumpers. Can they coexist? Tatum did not get it done.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah, that gets it done.
Does it?
Yeah, I think so. I think Tatum's perceived value, he's good, man. I kid, but he's a top 25 player, top 30 player. That gets it done. I mean, Rudy Gobert is a prototype that will age poorly within his contract.
I think that's what it comes down to. He's
up in 2021, though.
I think, yeah, that's true. Because at least Tatum, you have him for the duration of his next contract.
This would be
I
a
think
sign-in trade, right?
Value-wise, Gobert is clearly better than Tatum. Clearly, it's not even close.
Gobert's an All-NBA player, and I know Tatum barely made that list, but Gobert is always going to be top 3 in all defense, right?
I mean, Gobert led the league in scoring efficiency 2 of the last 4 years. He has led the league in blocks.
Wait, where's Mitchell Robinson here? He didn't qualify, did he?
Might not have qualified.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's one of the most efficient scorers. He has led the league in blocks multiple times. He's a defensive player of the year.
He's good.
He's clearly better than Jason Tatum. I mean, I don't even like Rudy Gobert. Like, he's just better than Jason Tatum. But you are right. Contractually, it doesn't make sense because he'll be unrestricted.
Let's just say in a vacuum we don't talk about money. Let's say it's a sign and trade and it's moot. Can I put on my little green glove?
Yeah, throw it on the little hand.
Rudy Gobert might age worse than a player like Jason Tatum in the modern NBA. If there's a few teams that move towards a direction like all these teams that we love and identify value and speed and pace, and Gobert's valuable. He dunks. That's the second most valuable shot, which is free throws. He has standalone value, but I do believe this prototype, and we're going to see it in the draft. James Wiseman would have been a number 1 overall 3 years ago, but like the league is changing really fast, and I think Tatum fits that mold better than Gobert, even though Gobert's better in the moment.
I think the league is changing because there are not that many Rudy Goberts.
It's a personnel issue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now every team can have a mediocre to pretty good rim protector. There's a zillion of them. Because now no one wants post-up bigs. Now no one wants kind of anything except a rim protector who ideally can shoot. So it's true that the league is evolving in a way that makes a Rudy Gobert a little less valuable. I think that's accurate. However, he is still an outlier.
He's the best one.
And being the best of them, along with Embiid, who's also great. And
Capella's nice, whatever.
Capella's good. But I would say Gobert is the cream of the crop when it comes to highly efficient, limited scorers who block shots and protect the rim. And you can just create a good defense around them. And I think being an outlier in that department makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, Tatum, good player. But I mean, what is he actually really good at?
We've softened our criticism of volume scorers. It's valuable.
But there's a zillion. There's a lot. There's a ton of volume scorers, and he is league average in terms of efficiency. I think he has upside. He can shoot. He's a good off-ball defender. He's disruptive. He's okay on the ball. He's not great, but he's good. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not even a Tatum hater. I'm just like, what is he actually really good at, though? What is it? What is he really good at?
He's a scorer. He's a pure scorer. He's not much of a. He's a finisher. He's not much of a shot creator. He's not in the basket of basketball geniuses. He's, I think, peak Robin in his career. I think he's going to have the most success around a player who's an alpha, and that's Kemba Walker. But I think he's a helpful player, though.
I'm not even an efficiency nerd, and I do respect the need for guys who can create. But, like, I don't know, man. I think the real value of Tatum is that he still has upside. Mm-hmm. The player he is right now, to me, is wildly overrated. Just wildly overrated. I do think, though, that if you say, well, if you could take those scoring abilities, average 27 a game, and suddenly become someone with real efficiency, add a little bit of passing, you can run an offense through him. Not a great one. He can't be a Harden, but he could be a really great offensive player as a volume scorer and a guy who, like, knocks down a bunch of threes, gets to the line a bunch, all that kind of shit. But right now, I just look at him like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. I just want to propose this kind of idea. Instead of trading a major asset for Rudy Gobert and maybe having to re-sign him, just hear me out on this. Robert Williams makes $2 million, 3.6, and a qualifying offer for 5.4. Looking at his nerd numbers, he's no Rudy Gobert. He's not far off, though. His advanced metrics are really good. Defensively, they kind of compare. You might have small sample size, I know. Rudy Gobert is a tried and true all-star. Robert Williams has been a flash. Defensive box BPM is 3.9 versus 2.2. Defensive rating 99-100. Why don't you just pay Robert Williams nothing and run him out there and use, if you were going to move a huge asset, fish elsewhere for another player?
From what I've seen of him, he has a lot of potential. He can
He's no
soar.
Gobert. Yeah.
He's got incredible wingspan, vertical spacer. When I say wingspan, I don't know his actual wingspan. I just mean he just takes up a lot of airspace. He's
good.
He's impressive, and he reminds me kind of guys like Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel, that ilk of disruptor. Mm-hmm. He might also be clueless and gets most of his minutes against third string guys and garbage time too. So it's hard to say, but I did think he seemed to have some pretty good minutes even in the playoffs, I do think he is that at least archetype. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, just looking at his per 100, they match up. I mean, he has more blocks per 100 than Gobert. They shoot the same exact from the free throw line. But you're right. He's lost on the court at times, and he does feast on bad matchups. But still, if you're going to unload for Rudy Gobert, you have to look at what you have and be like, we'll take the lumps with Robert Williams, right? Plus, he's called the Time Lord.
And he's 22.
Yeah.
And as you said, he makes nothing. I mean, I thought he did what he was supposed to do in the playoffs. He didn't play a ton, though. He only played 150 minutes. But, what he did, hyper efficiency, blocked more shots than anybody on the team, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, in the playoffs, he had better stats than Gobert. Advanced stats across the board. I don't know. But Gobert is... thankfully, Mitchell Robinson is New York, but my own team. I'm trying to be Magellan here. I don't want Gobert on my team. Like, does any fan in the NBA want Gobert on their team?
No, because he kind of dictates a style of play.
Yeah, man.
That's not appealing,
Yeah.
and is very tied to the Utah Jazz. If he was someone else and he looked different and had a different name and hadn't given COVID to everybody, and he wasn't part of Twinfection, maybe you'd say, "Oh, a giant 7'2" guy who blocks shots, the best rim protector, and will be first team all defense. Sign me up."
Totally.
Twist, it's Rudy Gobert. Oh no, I'm out.
Right.
Oh no, no.
No, Zutalor. No, you kind of sold me on him then, just now. I mean, right. If you told me there was a player like him in the draft, I'm like, well, you just automatically take him at 6, 7, 8, right?
I'm like, what if Mitchell Robinson turns into a 7'1" shot blocking machine, first team all defense, and the most efficient scorer in the NBA? Would you be excited? You'd be like,
Max him.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
that's
max
the
him
dream. Max him now before he has the chance to not be maxed.
Yeah. It's Rudy Gobert.
It's fucking Rudy Gobert. No.
Man, no. Yeah, it's true, man. He's like so uncool that like
He's a doofus.
I don't like if you're Sacramento, would you be like, yes, we got Rudy, baby?
I know. It's because he's like a humorless doofus.
He is a humorless doofus, and like he's along the lines of like Roy Hibbert, and like, yeah, we know, yeah. And Gobert is like, I have no interest in him, man. I'm not even mad at him. I'm just like, I just don't care. And he's very good. He's really good.
And maybe we also have some proof of concept that a team with Rudy Gobert and another good player is not enough to win a title.
This is true too. Which is like false proof, right? Like he could
Yeah, because Donovan Mitchell
It's also
isn't
average.
that great. He's
Yeah.
good. He's not a superstar. And also, the Jazz have had some really good teams. Like a couple of years ago, the Jazz had the best record in the NBA after the break. They were really, really tough. I thought they had a legitimate chance of going to the finals. And I want to say that was the year when Mitchell completely shat the bed in the playoffs. It was just atrocious. And obviously that sealed the deal.
I mean, I just want to talk about player movement for a second. If you're the Jazz and you're a Jazz player, you're Mike Conley, who's up. I think he has a player option for 34 in 2021, so he might be moving. But let's say you're Donovan Mitchell, Officer Mitchell. You blow your cop whistle. Beep, beep. We got a new owner, right? Sound the horn. Do you stay there? You view yourself as a star, Jordan bias. Like you move like Jordan. People love you. Big smile. You're kind of like a marketer's dream. New York City, right? That's been rumored. You have one more year at 5 and then a player option at 7. Oh, qualifying offer at 7. So you can take it or walk. What do you do with this new ownership?
To the best of my knowledge, there has not been a single player in NBA history who has been offered a max contract who turned it down and then took the qualifying offer to become a free agent following that season. It has never happened. And I would always, if I'm a team, I would always gamble on players not doing that.
So if you're Mitchell Robinson and you have 5 max deals on the table in 2022, do you stay? Do you take the max from Utah?
Well, you can't get any other offer anywhere. Doesn't matter. He can't go. He can't leave.
The fiscal conservative is logged on.
It's never happened.
I know, but like, let the doors of your mind swing open.
I mean, I feel like the Ringer wrote a whole article about how like Ben Simmons might be the one to do it. I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing. Like he might be the first superstar to actually turn down a qualifying offer, or excuse me, to take the qualifying offer to become a free agent. Will he do it? Will Ben Simmons do it? Will he leave? Will he take the qualifying offer? I'm like, this is trying way too hard, my guy.
But there is, I mean, the Ringer wrote an article about it. Players can do it.
It's technically possible, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. So, like, how is this the most difficult question we've asked all pod? We've gone over time, that's for sure. But like, is Donovan Mitchell going to stay in Utah? Has ended up being like the hardest question of this pod.
You've just got to get your CBA research together and talk to the interns and get your examples up. I'm telling you some facts here, and you're coming back with your theoreticals.
Are we
Big facts over here.
Cookies Hoops, the fiscal conservative pod?
I don't even know what you're talking about. You've lost the thread.
I mean, some people think about their happiness, and some people think about money, Ben.
You know what? You could
Yes,
be right.
I
You could
win.
be right. He might be the first player in NBA history to ever take the qualifying offer despite getting offered a max contract just so he can leave Utah. Maybe so.
So,
Maybe
but
so.
And when you say NBA history, the new CBA, so that's only like 15 years old. Because Weber did that like
No,
in
he
the
didn't.
90s.
No, players opt out of contracts all the time. Opting out of a contract is not the same as taking the qualifying offer.
Well, I'm glad we found your true passion. I was looking for it.
CBA judiciary.
Yeah, I
The
tried to talk
rules
about
and
Lil
bylaws
Wayne,
of the game.
technology, rap music, but it turns out you're a fiscal conservative.
Sounds like you should brush up. That's all I'm saying. You know, just log on to the CBA and read it front to back before our next
I
podcast.
love cookies.
Anyway, I'm glad I was able to
Take the L on that one.
school you on the facts of the CBA. Yeah, that was a nice short pod that we put together. Great job, Chloe. Way to delay it 20 minutes. Playing dumb about the qualifying offer.
Cookies.
Cookies.